hang out while I work on some commissions. Move it this way just a little bit. I'm painting over a piece that I never really continued working on. So there's kind of like this ghost lady hanging around in the background. My sketch here. Actually put that. I'm gonna put it in my dish rack. That'll work. Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna start by just laying down some groundwork. I'm going to use this sap green. Let's see. Too high. Let's go higher here. That's a lot better. I'm using Trap Nation's royalty-free playlist. So if there's like any advertisements, I don't even know what else on this playlist. I just figure it'd be nice to have something a little bit in the background. I think I'm actually going to skip that one. Let's see. Should actually be a little bit thinner, but for this is okay. Let's see. And this will be the bank. Skyfall about right here. Flare white and dark. So that's just some planning. I don't know about any of this. Let's see. Alright. So next I'm going to add just a little bit of green. I'm going to start kind of filling in the dark spots. I think I'm actually going to bring another shade of green into this. I have all my paints like way over here. Actually, I think there it is. Okay, I'm going to use permanent green. I'm going to mix that with the sap green a little bit. And maybe I can get this back on. We'll see. Let's see. Alright. So I get more of like an emerald color. I'm going to start kind of going really loosely. I'm struggling a little bit with if I want to add any blue to this. It's meant to be a lake in the area, and like you don't get a lot of blue in the lakes in this area, but I know that it would probably be pretty aesthetically pleasing if I did. I just don't know how to make it not look corny. I don't know, maybe I can add it in the ripples a little bit and then like paint into it more. But for right now, I'm just gonna kind of really loosely go into it. My easel kind of shakes a lot. That's okay. So I admit I'm not super familiar with streaming yet. Is there a way that I can have chat show up? Maybe I can figure that out at some point. If I was smart, I could have had this up on the on our laptop so I could look at the chat if there is one. Or maybe it just shows up automatically. I don't even know. We'll see. So we're gonna just kind of smudge that out a little bit. I don't want it to come in quite so strong, because this is almost like atomic neon green. Okay. I think I'm gonna go in and put some sky up top. I need the titanium white. Let's see, do I want to use ultramarine or permanent? That's really matter. No, I'll go with cerulean. We'll see how that looks. Right. Doesn't look like much quite yet, huh? Get in trouble for advertisements to come up as I go down this royalty-free playlist? It's a good question. I guess I'll find out eventually, huh? If I ever get monetized. Okay. We're in pretty tight quarters here, I'm realizing. Which is okay, I guess. Hopefully one day I can have a nice big fancy studio with like a view. That would be the dream, huh? But for now, we're in my tiny apartment, in my tiny kitchen, which is fine. I don't mind having a tiny apartment just because, like, it's easier to clean. I can kind of get my everyday chores kind of done in the morning and then devote the rest of the day to painting or doing digital art or, you know, whatever I need to do. So I'm just going to really loosely just sort of a generic sky color. It's going to, at the very end, kind of poke out through the trees a little bit. So we're just going to go sort of loose and fast and not really worry about it. But I'm wondering if I should put a little bit of yellow in there so you can kind of get the idea of the sun really coming through there. Let's just dry it up a little bit and hope it doesn't turn green when I put a little bit of yellow in there. I'm just going to go real light with Cadmium Lemon. My painting professor always used to say white does not equal light. It's whatever's around something that makes it seem whiter. But if you're really wanting something to come out like almost to the point where it's washed out, you can put some just the lightest yellow you have, because it's really, in value, it's very similar to white. So we're just going to do, I might not even, I'll put a little bit of white in there. It doesn't really matter if this gets tinty because I almost actually want it to read as just white with maybe a little bit of color, but not a lot. Let's see. See, that's almost too dark, but I can go over it with white if I feel like. Let's just hope it doesn't turn green. That's the big thing here. That's not bad. Let's just blend it to the ends here. You still see some of Spooky Lady underneath, but that'll be fine because once I paint in the trees and the dogwood blossoms, it should be fine. So you want to take an angled brush and start putting in some of the, oh, someone else came in, hi. I'm going to put in the bank here. Let's see. I think I'm going to use burnt sienna. Maybe something else, let me see. I have another brown. Huh. I think I'm missing a color. That's okay. That's fine. I can get that with burnt sienna and maybe some purple or something. Actually, am I missing my purples? I think I'm missing some colors. Good job, Olivia. I should have probably double checked. So I can check my, let's see, I keep all my paint down here, but it doesn't look like I'm missing anything. Aha! Here's my purple. This is what I was looking for. Boom. I must have just ran out of... Let's see, what color is it? I forget the name. It's the one that's like cooler than dark sienna. Anyway. That's fine. Because I can kind of do the same thing. Alright, I'm just using dioxazine? A lot of these just sort of came in my, just came in like the kit that we got in Painting 1 and 2 when I was in college a couple of years ago. Oh, that's awesome, Rebecca. Thank you. I will. I'm gonna do another one here shortly. I just gotta figure out, I'm gonna do Rawhead and Bloody Bones if you ever got told that one. I'm gonna do that one next. I just need to figure out more than one drawing or how to lengthen the digital thing, because like it's a really long story. We'll see. But it's on the books. Yeah, I used to get told the Telequo story a bunch growing up. We got told Big Toe too, which is kind of the same thing. Awesome, yeah. Oh, that makes me really happy that you're looking forward to it. I'm a little nervous. But I used to get told the Big Toe story too, which is kind of the same thing. I feel like you kind of heard one or the other growing up, you know? I heard Golden Arm too, but I never really was as fond of Golden Arm, just because, I don't know, it just, as a child, it seemed really weird that someone would have a golden arm, like as a prosthetic. Oh yeah, good idea, Dawn. Yeah, maybe I'll do that, because there was a lot of sketching involved and references. There were a lot of references involved with that one. A lot of references involved with like doing monsters and kind of gory stuff. Alright. This might lean a little too purple. Let's see what it looks like. I just want to kind of get... Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's okay. Okay. It's a little thick though. Go a little bit thinner and then paint in the darker at the end. I struggle with greens, guys. Do you guys have that problem, like with foliage and stuff? I remember in my senior show, the one that, the painting that gave me the most trouble was the one that had all the leaves on it. So we're just gonna kind of do a little bit of this here. I'm gonna print out some reference images when I get into more of the detail stuff, but for this I'm just gonna kind of lay out shapes of color and not really fuss over tones as much. Right. Let's see. Actually, I don't think the music is doing much for the stream. I might just shut it off and use the references on my phone. I thought it would be kind of nice, but I don't know. I kind of feel like I should be streaming weed or something. Just because I kind of feel like that's what it sounds like. Yeah, I think I'm actually going to do that. Just because I need to try and figure out where the tree line starts. So my father-in-law actually commissioned this piece and sent me a lot of pictures of the lake that he wanted. There we go. Okay, that's a lot better. So I have a sketch and then I have some reference images. So I need to get the dark of the tree line in. I'm going to take some red actually, I think. I'm going to take some permanent rose and mix that in. There's some sap green, so it's not super duper loud. Let's see. I don't know, do you guys miss the music at all? Should I bring it back? No, it kind of just seems like the ambience from my refrigerator, which is one of those older ones that makes a lot of sound anyway. Let's see, okay. So if the bank is here, start the trees back here. Just really sort of. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that one. Can I bring it up to look back? Sorry, I missed that one. But hello? I kind of maybe need someone watching chat. Hey, is that Jacob Colt? Wait, who is that? Well, whoever you are, hello. Yeah, okay. Hi, Jake. Welcome to the party. This is getting a little brown, so we're gonna bring in let's bring in a little bit more. All right. So right now it just kind of looks like a mess, which is okay, because I'm just sort of laying out where everything's gonna go. Let's actually put some of it down here real close to the bank. This is all gonna kind of, I need to actually bring this up. I'm gonna have to kind of lie on the perspective here, just because, let's see, you make a print, make sure, okay, with some prints, always consistent. Yeah, oh, the size, yeah. Yeah, I'm having a little bit, I want to get into prints, sort of more seriously, because there's a lot of conventions here where you can sell everything, but I don't know, it's sort of daunting. Like, I know it shouldn't be, I mean, I know it's not that, it's not like super complicated or anything, but I don't know. I guess I'm afraid of investing the money, and then them not coming out good, and then there I am, you know, like maybe potentially a couple hundred in the hole. But there are some people who sell, like, there's PopCon here in Morgantown, and there are a lot of people who sell their prints there and are very successful. But I don't know, I'm kind of, it seems like maybe it's kind of a hard market to break into, especially since I don't do a lot of, like, fan art. Maybe I should, but no, that's not the one I wanted. Running through the sap ring fast. this is the part of painting you don't see. Struggling to get the cap on for a good 15 minutes. Okay. Where did I put my phone? There it is. I guess that's the other half, is looking for your phone for 15 minutes. Alright. Up. This is actually still a little wet, so I'm not going to fuss with it too much and bring it down. But I'm going to take the permanent green and put it towards the bottom. That way the bottom's a little bit more saturated than the top. Let's see if this is too loud. It might be. Well, it's not bad. I almost wonder if it needs some yellow. Maybe I'll hold off on that till the very end. Actually, you guys can't even see what I'm doing on the bottom. I don't know, maybe I'll invest in a tripod in the future. Let's go in a little bit wetter. Alright, let's see. That looks okay. Are you guys hearing my neighbor mow his lawn in the background there? I don't know. Should I lift that up to show you guys? It's not super interesting, it's just the bank on the other side. Alright. Cool. Let's see, do I want to go? Let me put some burnt umber in the middle there. Sort of green water is a little difficult to get sometimes. I think we're trained a little bit to see blue and automatically think water, but like in this area it's very rare to see blue water. Forever a struggle. Alright, let's see. No, that's okay. It's not the same. No, it's not. Alright, I'm actually going to switch and change to a more angled brush, I think. That way I can kind of do that, and then I'm going to have to suck it up and then paint this part of the boat, which I've been avoiding, but I'm going to quit avoiding it because you always want to paint wet into wet so that you don't get creases in the paint layers. That was another problem with my senior show, was I didn't paint wet into wet. So they were kind of some very clear, I don't know, it's almost like a seam between when you started and when you stopped painting certain levels or certain parts. And you can really tell a difference, I think. But I don't know, you gotta always make mistakes, I guess. That's okay. Trying not to be too awful painterly with it. Actually, let me quit avoiding it and kind of push it to the edges. It's gonna be framed, so I'm not like super duper worried about it, but do need to focus on the edges. Always focus on your edges, guys. Let's see. I'm just going through the sap green in this painting. It's okay, I'll add some red in the shadows on the boat, and I think that'll make it stick out a little bit more. And I might be able to sneak some red into the dogwood blooms at the very end. Alright, let's see here. Get my phone again. I have the new phone that has the face recognition, but it doesn't always work super well. Especially at night, like when I'm on my phone at night trying to go to sleep and I have the lights off, it's not really something you consider until you're actually in the situation. I sort of thought it was a little novel. Let's see. Let's go a little bit more green. Actually, okay, there we go. That's better. It's almost like a green brown, the water around here. There's a lot of brown in it. There's a lot of sediment. And that's okay. All right. Ooh, that was dark. No mistakes, only happy accidents, right? That's a little bit better. I sometimes think the funny thing about painting, especially painting like really loosely, is that it kind of looks like crap until the very end. I think the details are what really bring it home, because up until that point it's just like color is kind of mushing together a little bit. At least I feel that way with sort of more nature scene stuff, which is what I get asked to do a lot. I don't really get asked for a lot of portraits or figure pieces or anything. I guess like it only kind of makes sense whenever you're in a rural area that people would want pieces of land that are significant to them, you know. But I didn't really study landscapes in college, so it's sort of been a little bit of a learning curve in how to approach it, because it is really different from when you're doing studio painting, which is mostly like figure studies and cast studies. We did a lot of drapes. We did a lot of drape studies too, but we didn't do a lot of landscapes. Let's see. I think I'm gonna drag some of the light in that green down a little bit, just because I want the figures to sort of be longer here, because the reflection is going to come down and I kind of want it to be a little bit like longer and spindly. Let's see. Where did I put my angle brush there? Woo! Let's see. It's going to be a lot of me dropping brushes. There's a lot of oil involved, a lot of terp, so everything stays pretty slick. And I'm a klutz anyway, so it doesn't really help me out here. Alright, that's a little bit better. Get everything going the same way. Might go in and paint some ripples later on, but for right now. Let's just loosely smudge it down. Yeah, that's better. Cool. Okay. I'm going to start on the boat. I have reference images of the boat as well. I just got paint all over my counter. It's okay. Let's take a smaller flat brush here. I might need some more titanium white. Bring out the big tube. Only because I am going to have to kind of, I try to use the white sparingly. You don't want things to get tinty. But I do have a painting underneath this that I'm trying to cover up. I probably should have just done another layer of gesso, but hindsight and all that. It's alright, we can manage. Most of this is going to be pretty thick, so thick or dark. I feel like that's a little too thin, so I'm going to thicken that up a little bit. I might actually need my palette knife, wherever that is. Huzzah! One of the problems with not having a studio and just kind of painting out of my apartment is like picking stuff up and putting it away after everything, because some of this, like a lot of this stuff is pretty toxic. And I have a dog who licks things, but just like constantly picking it up and putting it away, I do tend to lose a lot of the small ins and outs, like my palette knives and like some of my smaller brushes. But it's no big deal. Let's go. Sort of cut into that seam there with the flat brush, and then I'll go in and like paint some shadow in here a little bit. Okay, I feel like right there it's a little thick. Like the body of the boat in real life is thinner. So I'm gonna not get titanium white everywhere. And I'm actually going to take more of that green color and sort of smudge it back in. And look at the, let's see. So the top actually raises a little bit. So I'm gonna bring that up. Yeah, that's better. Need to, might actually get the, oh, yeah, there. That's better. Actually, I'm going to bring this out a little bit. I made it a little short right there. That might be what my problem is I didn't bring, it's got a little bit of a fin that comes out the back. Like it sort of angles out a little bit, and I didn't get that initially, so that might be what the problem is. Yeah, that looks a little better. Okay. I do sometimes get a little nervous if I'm doing a really sentimental commission, just because, you know, the content that people want you to paint in those situations, they're very close to And if you get one thing wrong, you never know if it's going to just completely throw it off for them. So you try to get it as accurately as possible. All right. Okay. It's actually going to be bad and just use my sleeve here. That's okay. Cool. All right, let's start on the shadows a little bit. Let's see. I think I'm going to use I might use some cadmium red. I'm trying to mix it in somehow so that it looks. Just try to sneak it in, you know? Ooh. Let's see how that goes. Let's be daring, guys. Let's be daring. Put some cadmium red down. I don't think I'll mix it with burnt sienna. I kind of want to mix it with more purple, actually. It's gonna come out real purple though. It's gonna come out like a grape color. Let's try it. If I don't like it, I can always erase it. I go in kind of all right. So there's a seam that goes around the side of the boat. This is gonna be need some precision here, guys. You know, I actually kind of like the purple there. That's okay then. Okay. I'll smudge in some green at the bottom, that way it'll mix a little bit better. Let's turn it around a little bit. Alright, so the problem here is that seam needed to go down and I went up. So we're just going to switch it out like so. And this is all going to be in shadow, so I'm not worried about it getting kind of heavy with the purple up front. So let's start lower here. It's a little thick. I can paint back into it, that's fine. All right. Let's see. All right, let's try that again. Turning into the hole, guys. When in doubt, just use a finger to smudge it. There's nothing wrong with that. Not really supposed to because this stuff is kind of toxic, but I'm not super worried about it. Alright, cool. Alright, let's go in really lightly and just sort of drag that down. I actually do want this to come to the end though, so. And if you look, I kind of went over, so I'm going to have to go back in and fix that line up. Edges are always kind of a push and a pull. You're going to have them meet and kind of bleed into each other, and that's okay. That's kind of the the beautiful thing about oil is it's super malleable. You can kind of always go back into it. It takes a while to dry, so you're never really worried about like a lot of finality. There's always going to be some. Let's break it down. Alright, so that's a little tinty, but I'm just going to leave it and then go back over it when it dries. That just sort of gives me a thing to work off of. The main thing was I wanted to try and obscure some of that underpainting, so it's no big deal. Okay. I guess I can start putting in some tree trunks and some foliage. Let me look at the dogwood pictures here. Yeah, there's already some pink in the dogwoods. I might be able to sneak some redbud in there too, and kind of tie it together. That way there's some more red and purple in the painting. Hopefully it'll feel a little bit more natural that way. But first, I think I'm going to smudge that existing brown around a little bit. I'm going to use this powder poof brush. This is actually pretty dry, so potentially I don't have to worry about underpainting too much. There we go. Cool. Angle brush. All right, let's use some permanent green and some more of the lemon yellow. Let's see, how much permanent green do I have left? Decent amount, okay. I don't think I need a whole awful lot. So what I struggle with in a painting like this is that I'm not super worried about detail. Some people are when they do more landscape and sort of nature scenes, but I'm not particularly worried about it in this, just because it's a matter of like foreground, background. And especially at this moment, I'm doing a lot of planning still, which is why it's sort of smushy. I think I am actually going to get some more permanent green. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Yeah, I kind of like that. Okay. So it's a little bit darker than what I had before. But if I push that towards the bottom of the bank, it should squish in with some of this brown. And as I'm looking, I'm noticing that there are points where the foliage isn't growing very close, so I'm actually going to leave spots where it's more brown So this is all pretty dark right here. I think, yeah. And I can put some more yellow kind of on top of that little layer of green I'm putting down. That way it seems more like light is hitting it. And as I go over these figures, because if you remember, I said you always want to paint wet into wet. I'm gonna have to, whoa, uh-oh. I'm going to have to address the figures here shortly, as I almost die. What did I grab the permanent green for? I wanted the yellow. I wanted cadmium lemon. There we go. You gotta be really careful when mixing with your little pile of cadmium yellow, just because, or cadmium lemon, because it's not a very strong hue, so it'll take on whatever you mix it with like super quickly. So you kind of almost have to just mix it with like one thing, because if you try to mix it again, you're gonna get the color that you're trying to mix second with the color you mixed first. Does that make sense? Let's see, let's bring it down. I think I want it to touch. I want to bring the green down to the ends and then sort of leave some brown towards the middle. That way it sort of draws in a little bit. My dress is pretty dry, so I'm gonna just dip it into the turp. Let's see, here we go. Okay. Pretty good with that. All right. Actually, kind of want to add some inconsistency a little bit. Okay. All right, let's add more yellow to the top, so that's why it's, you can tell the sun is sort of touching the top of the shrubbery on the bank. And then it's going to get sort of brown again as the trees kind of cover up some of the sunlight, so less foliage kind of grows under the trees a little bit. I think after that I'll start addressing the figures that are in the center of the picture plane. I think I want this sort of field of yellow to get higher as it goes up. That way you sort of get, because I'm getting a pyramid effect down here where everything's going to kind of drift down. I kind of want to do the same thing on top. That way it seems a little bit more balanced. It doesn't draw your eye down too much. See if I'm successful. almost like a lime color. It's getting too yellow, so I'm going to add a touch more green. Let's see. Yeah, that's better. And I'm not really worried about any particular shape. I'm just sort of smutsing that in. If I feel like it needs more structure, I can always go back and do that. But a lot of structure in the beginning is really hard to erase. Actually, so I feel like there's almost too much light in the center here, so I'm actually gonna bring some brown and sort of like, I'm gonna darken that up a little bit. Let's see if it works. That's okay. I don't want to get anything that's too drastically different in color from anything else in this line, because that's really going to be distracting, I think. Let's see. See, maybe a little bit more yellow. And if I still feel like it's too dark or too light or not light enough here, I can sort of darken some things around it. Let's see. That'll do for now. And then from there, I'm wondering if I should have, I do want to have a little bit of a ridge line in the back. So what I think I will do is take some ultramarine blue and mix it with some sap green. And maybe a touch of white, just because things get less saturated as they go the farther back. So it's okay if it gets just a teensy tiny bit tinty. It's gonna be really dark though. Let's see. Oh, that's not so bad. Okay. I'm gonna go in pretty wet with it. That way it doesn't show up too dark. I just want it to be one ridge line, so if I'm looking at it, it's pretty flat. It's not a huge dramatic ridge line, it's just sort of, it's almost like a bowl. And then you get a little bit here. And I'm going to drag that down. I'm going to have some trees sort of coming up just to give it a little bit more texture, but for now this will certainly do. And that'll sort of give me something to work off of when I'm putting some more of these trees in the foreground with the dogwoods. So this is a little right here in this spot. So I'm just gonna kind of, you know, just fiddle with it until I feel like it's sort of evened out a little bit. It's a lot of fiddling. Okay, so now I think I'm gonna address the figures in the middle there. I'm debating what brush to go in with. I think I'll go in with this bad boy right here. Sort of the ground tip. I know that they all have names. I really don't have them memorized though. Like I probably ought to. But after a while it's like you just remember them by their function and not really by their name. So I have some pictures of people actually in this boat on the water. We're gonna go down. Take a minute. Okay. I lost it. Well done. I haven't really thought about clothing as much as I probably ought to have. But that's okay. Let's see. Yeah, that's okay. Alright. So I'm probably going to have it mostly in shadow. And I think I will use a lot of red just because there is, well, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll, no, I think I will. I think I'm going to use that same sort of purple shade I'm using here for the rest of it. That way it sort of comes across as like one entity there in the water. And hopefully it'll come across as unified. Hopefully. Let's just see how we like this. So I'm just going to go in real light. Let's see. So that head looks a little funny. There we go. Might need to actually go in with a smaller brush on this, but I'm lazy, so see how far I can get without switching brushes. Alright, I think I want this dude to be turned this way in the boat seat a little bit. So I'm going to have him going this way, and then you would get a little bit of the arm. And then, whew. Yeah, no, it is way too wide for a fishing rod. But with him leaning over, like, I want him facing this way, but looking at the other dude towards the middle. And I might have to fudge that with a fishing cap. There we go. Yeah, that works. Cool. Okay. And again, we're not super worried about detail at this point. We're just planning. So this person's going to be faced opposite, facing out again. And just sort of minding their own business. And that's kind of thick for a fishing pole, but yeah, I think I can paint kind of address layers at a later date, maybe fix that a little bit. So I'm looking at the colors here, and I think I want to go darker on the boat again, because I'm noticing that there's a lip here that I did not address. Oof. Okay, that looks fine. So there's a lip here I didn't really address. And it's pretty dark towards the front right there, where the overhang is. And I might go in at the very end with like just white and the little, a really tiny like 00 brush, and just sort of put some highlights on it, but I'm not gonna worry about that right yet. Let's put this deep here. This is a little off. That's okay. I kind of want the shadow on top to be a little bit more defined than on this, like under the lip. I want it to fade out a little bit more there, and I think I want to take some of this green because you'll get a reflection from the water onto the boat. But it's going to be a matter of give and take with that and the purple. Let's see. See, I'm noticing now that this is a lot higher here, so I'm actually going to bring this lip out. I think this might be a job for Mr. Palette Knife, actually. Let's bring him down, because I kind of want like a sort of like a downward. Yeah, that didn't do as much as I hoped. That's alright. It's just a matter of fiddling with it until it does what you want it to. Alright, let's go in a little bit darker right here. And then see, because there's a little bit of like a aura that kind of comes in. That's not like the best word, but you get like a highlight. It's not super dark all the way through. It kind of fades out and becomes a little light right there. I'll probably have to go in with a smaller brush and sort of figure all that out. But for the purposes of right now, we're not going to worry about it. That's more final detail kind of stuff. However, I do need to figure out what I'm going to do down here with the reflection. So the picture that I'm using as reference does not have a reflection. So I'm going to have to figure out how to fudge this a little bit. Let's hope it comes out. I don't know what's going to happen with this. I think my thinking here is that when you get the reflection of the boat, you're going to get more of the shadow underneath the boat as opposed to what you're seeing here. Because like, if we're looking at it from here, you're getting the flat side of the boat, but if the reflection underneath it is coming this way, you're sort of more getting where the boat turns under. So I'm going to go a lot more heavy on like this purple shadow color and not put in a lot of highlight until the very end, and then darken it towards the front. That way it just sort of denotes that's where the shadow comes in a lot stronger. And I might put some permanent rose on the bottom because it is going to be cooler since it's reflecting off of the water. And I'll probably put some green ripples in there at some point. Let's see. I don't think that looks terrible. So hopefully we're on the right track. Ooh, that's way too dark. Yeah, no shame in using your fingers to just kind of smudge her a little bit. Also, I see I gained another viewer. Hello. I I can't see who all is watching, but thank you for joining. I suspect the person who's been with me this whole time is Tanner, but it might not be because he's supposed to be at Wolf and Dog and playing Magic. Actually, he's not supposed to be there until 2, so or until 6, so it might not be Tanner. I don't know who else is watching, but hi. Alright, I don't think that looks terrible. I almost kind of wish I added some yellow. I think I am going to add some yellow to the boat. That way it's not, oh, hello, third person. So just looking at it, I feel like the boat right now is way too white. Like I've painted too much local color. So I'm gonna add some cadmium yellow and just sort of break up all of that white I've painted on. Let's see. Hopefully, I mean, it's just gonna have to be like tiny little amount of yellow. I'll probably use the angle brush. Let's see. All right. Still got some residual green left on my angled brush from this. That's okay. Let's see how this looks. Okay, yeah. It might not pick up on the screen, but let's see. I'm just gonna kind of smudge that on there. I might, okay, so I'm actually gonna drag that yellow into this sort of spot down here where the shadow breaks up, and then I'm gonna border it more there to make that shadow where it meets a little bit more defined. Yeah, that's okay. Let's see. I feel like it's getting a little green there on the end. So let's bring some white in. Let's commit the cardinal sin here and add more white. All right. What'd I say? Second time dropping the brush today. I'm actually doing pretty good. Most of the time I would have like straight up dropped it on the floor, like there would be smudges all over my kitchen floor by now. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I have to stop everything and clean it up immediately when that happens because I don't want my dog to get into it. That would be some A+ content, I'm sure. Alright. Let's actually bring kind of some more cadmium yellow. And I'm just going to put it along the bottom here, the way it's a little bit darker. But it still kind of ties back in. And I think I'm going to... See, I feel like the shadow of the boat's a little thick towards the end here, because if you look, there's more shadow up here. It should be less here. Let's get a little bit, let's actually do some like green just to bring that in. This should actually come out more, I'm realizing. Last second. Yeah, I didn't consistently bring the shadow out, and it should actually kind of go splay out this way, away from the boat, kind of like it's the reflection sort of moving with the ripples in the water. Let's see. The hardest part with something like this is trying to get it to look in a way that like people will understand. what it is. It's one of those things that like you'll see a lot in real life and in nature, but you wouldn't necessarily, it's not really something you consider when making an image. So when you're tackling something like that, it can be a little difficult to communicate exactly what it is. Whereas if it's something that we sort of have a symbol for in our brain, so like, for example, if I was going to paint like a heart, you know, we have a symbol for a heart that doesn't look anything like an actual heart, but if I was going to paint an actual heart, you would still be able to tell it was a heart because we already have like a simplified understanding of what a heart is and like what it looks like. Does that make any sense? Am I just rambling? Yeah, it looks okay. Alright, I feel like this line is a little too defined for what it is I'm actually looking at. So let's add some cadmium yellow and sort of break that up a little bit. I'll go in with sort of the round brush here in a little bit if we get to it, and sort of make more sense of this situation down here. Add some ripples that are actually like going through the reflection in the boat, just to make it more clear that it's actually a boat in water. Let's see. Yeah, like I think that's a better example. Cool, okay. Yeah, okay. I think that's all right. Okay, and then I should address the figures down here, but I'm not quite sure what's happening with them up here yet. So I'm gonna hold off on that for right now. I'm thinking though that the lip of the seat is too high on the reflection, so I'm actually gonna bring it down because I'm already kind of flubbing a little bit because I want the figures to show up in the water, but I don't want it to seem like I'm asking too much of the viewer. I don't want the viewer to suspend their disbelief too much or have to. So we're going to just more of that color we had with the sap green and the burnt sienna. And again, I'm using oil. Did I say I was using oil? I don't think I actually said what I was using, but no, I did. Because I said that's the good thing about oil is you can always like fool with it later. So if you didn't get that, I'm using oil. I think I might have used some permanent green in there, so I'm gonna mix some of that and make it a little bit more emeraldy. I don't want it to completely look like mud. We want to avoid that. I kind of like that color a little bit more like that anyway. So that was a good decision, Olivia. Good decision. Okay, let's bring that. Yeah, see, so then the neck's really long. I'm not gonna fuss with the head shape too much. I think I can probably drag it down as I go along. Hi! Hello, other person. Thank you for joining me as I paint and ramble. Alright, so I'm debating on if I want to risk pulling some green into that reflection right now. I think I will, at least just because it breaks away a little bit here. So if I'm yeah, I think that looks okay. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna go in really dry and kind of light and just, I don't know how I felt about that. No, that's okay. That's okay. Oh, no, I changed my mind. Just because, like, I want it to come around the boat, like I don't, okay, I think what the problem is, so I want the reflection to actually kind of come around the boat. I don't want it to just be, like, flush with where it ends, because you want it to communicate that it's a round object. So I just needed to add more of a line there. Yeah, that's okay. And if anybody is currently chatting, I'm really sorry. I kind of need to get someone to watch the chat for me or something. I don't know. Is there some way that people usually handle that I'm just like kind of dumb and not really getting? I think what I'll do for my next stream is have the laptop up. And that way, I don't know, I mean, maybe I'll bring back the music if I can find a royalty-free playlist that I liked. I wasn't really feeling the one I had on. I felt more like, I don't know, stuff that you would have on if you were streaming like League or Overwatch or something. Which is fine. Nothing against that, but it's not really the vibe we're going for. I don't think anybody wants to watch a painting video feeling like they're playing Dota or something. Let's see. So I think now I'm gonna start addressing the more forested area. Because with this, I've done about all I care to do right now. And all of this, the value and tones that I use here are going to kind of instruct what more I do in the center. Because I want them, like I want this to be the lightest thing in the picture frame, or the picture plane. So it's like in the center, it draws your eye immediately. But, yeah, we'll see, we'll see. Fingers crossed, hopefully it works out. Alright, I'm gonna pull up my reference image here. Okay. So as I'm looking, this gets really brown with little patches of green. So I think I'm just gonna take like straight burnt sienna and just sort of smudge that in really lightly. And then I can go back and add patches of permanent or sap green. And that'll sort of communicate like foliage underneath whenever I decide to put the trees and lighter foliage on top. But I don't, that's pretty warm actually. I don't want to go
I don't want to go too dark with it at the moment just because I don't want anything to fight with I don't want anything to fight with any highlights that I decide to add later. In fact, I kind of think like darkest darks should sort of be one of the last things you do. You want to plan for them first, but then like execute them last. Because you don't want it to be too dark. Okay, let's try that. I also want this forest to be, like I want all of this to be cooler than what's down here, because as things move away from you, they get a lot cooler. That's why this mountain is almost blue. It's pretty warm though. So I'm gonna add some blue. I'm gonna add some cadmium blue, I think. It's not the ultramarine, it's the other one. I think that's cadmium. And I'm gonna add that to some sap green. And then I'm gonna add some more burnt sienna on that. Let's see what color this turns into. Because this is a lot, like, this was wet when I painted over it. It's coming in a lot cooler than over here where it was mostly dry. But that's pretty dark. Let's loosen this a little bit. No, it's still pretty dark. Actually, I don't think I mind it. I don't think I mind having it kind of darker here because it'll pull your eye in more. So I think I'm going to keep it actually darker here on the corners. That way it sort of frames whatever's in the middle. Okay, we're just going to kind of smudge that in. Okay. So there's a gap where this foliage meets here, so I'm just going to take some permanent green and just sort of, you know, just sort of flick it in almost. Not really worried about a lot of detail in these corners. I'm going to do the same on the other side here. I don't want to block out the frame. I kind of have to move to the side to do it. Anyway, I know the setup isn't exactly ideal. It's a little difficult. My kitchen is super tiny and I have a lot of windows. But as the year progresses, because I'm going to try and do this every Thursday, so I really want to get into the habit of it because I'm not doing as much of like the fine art painting, what I went to college for type stuff. Because it is a lot more time consuming and it's a lot more involved than if I'm just sitting on my iPad drawing in Procreate. But I figure if I turn it into like a hangout kind of deal, people will be more inclined to watch and I'll kind of paint a lot more. I have a lot of paintings I want to do, I'm just super lazy. Let's see. So I think I'm going to take some ultramarine blue and really sort of define where the foliage stops and starts. Fun fact, ultramarine blue is actually the color I run out of the quickest. The most recent painting I finished, which is the bonfire picture that my that's up in the Native Vibes Gallery in Mannington. The reason it took so long was because I ran out of ultramarine blue, and I used a lot of that in the night sky. That way, it's not just like a super flat black in the background. It's sort of I don't know, it sort of fills a gap, like makes it seem like there's a recessed space behind all the the knight in that picture. And I just never could get a chance to go to Michael's to get more ultramarine blue. And I actually ended up just saying like, screw it. And I ordered a big tube of it off of Amazon because I didn't want to go to Michael's. I'm pretty bad actually. I've only been to Michael's once since I moved to Morgantown. Which, I mean, in Kentucky I had to go all the way to Richmond to get to Michael's. You would think I would take more advantage of it, but I don't know, we're just never in that little plaza that it's in. But I definitely want to go here soon because they have all their Halloween stuff up. If for nothing else. And I need to load up on ink for Inktober, which I'm going to be participating in and doing videos for this year. I gotta figure out a consistent upload schedule though, because like you're supposed to do a painting or an ink drawing every day, but I don't know, trying to like draw and then edit and then upload once a day every day is gonna kind of be killer. Plus I don't know, October is like, it's gonna be really busy for us this year, and there's a lot of stuff I want to do. Like I really want to go to Fright Nights at Kennywood and kind of do a lot of different haunted houses. So I gotta figure out how I'm gonna juggle all of that. So I might do like I don't know, I might just like film myself doing the upload or doing the Inktober drawing, and then like, I don't think I like how I did this here. I'm gonna smudge that up. So I might end up doing like recording the Inktober drawings and then editing them together in like this one really long thing once a week with just sort of me talking over them. That way you'll get like 7 drawings per video once a week. I don't know, we'll see. The only thing is I just don't want, like I just don't want it to be too long, you know. Trying to upload and edit a really long video is just, no one wants that. Alright, so I'm going to use the same color that I was using here. And I want to put some of it back here, but I want it to be a little bit lighter because it's going back in space. So I'm debating, I might use some of this that's left over from the sky and pray that it doesn't get super tinty. We'll see. No, that's not too bad. And again, not really worried about detail at this point. Just sort of going in for it. It's almost turning purple. I don't know, I don't hate it. Wasn't necessarily what I wanted, I guess. That's okay. So if I'm doing this in more of a purple color, I gotta kind of plan what I'm gonna do with the tree trunks when they start coming in. I think I might actually bring some of this down. That way there's like a little bit of breaks in this foliage. Especially towards the middle, it just kind of looks like one big thing of green. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit. Oh, no. Let's see. I'm going to bring some of that purple color up a little bit more, since these are actually going to be two ridge lines sort of meeting or overlapping. So this, there should be like a defined sort of hill there, and then I'm going to kind of cover the break with trees a little bit. And then, as I'm looking at the picture, I think I can see a little bit of a four-wheeling trail. So I'm just going to, hint that that's there. I'm not going to go in and fuss over it too much because I don't want it to distract from anything, but might be a nice little nod. So it's very blue, but I actually don't hate it too much. Yeah, I don't, it's really blue, but like, I don't mind it. I don't think it looks super unnatural or anything. I need to actually define the second ridge line there. Let's put just a little bit more of this in there. Okay. I'm gonna go a little warm where I define that, just so it sends home that it's closer. I'm just gonna kind of use a warmer blue. And I'm painting super dry because I don't want any really sharp lines at this point. I'm not really going to worry about really sharp lines until the very end. Okay. So now I'm going to take my smallest flat brush, and as I'm looking at it, those first little shrubs are looking pretty, it's kind of looking kind of like an atomic vomit green. So I'm gonna go in with a little bit more sap green, and a little bit of burnt umber, and just bring some of it down a little bit. And instead of going this way, I'm going to go up and down with my strokes a little bit more. Just because I want sort of a little bit more of a range of motion from it. I'm hoping that sort of like tones it down just a smidge. I think that looks better. I'm just now realizing that the light has changed in my kitchen, and you might not be able to see my painting quite as much, so I'm actually going to shift it so that you can hopefully see it a little bit better. I just hate that I have this big window in my kitchen. That sort of makes it hard to see. As it kind of starts to get late a little bit earlier, I might push my stream back a little bit. That way I'm not trying to fight with the sun. Unfortunately, just the way that my kitchen is set up, there's not really any way to really kind of address it. But I don't know, I'm hoping that it doesn't bother you guys too much. If it's really bothersome, just sort of let me know. I can maybe push something over the window ahead of time, but I don't know. I'm not gonna like worry really hard about perfection on the first stream anyway. Just kind of accepting that there are going to be things that you don't really consider the first time around, you know? But you can always kind of address and correct in the future. It's my proverb for the today, I guess. This is too much of the same mark here. I'm actually going to go from way up high and drag it down a little bit. Well, it's okay. Let's kind of do that on the other side. Actually going to break it up there a little bit. That looks okay. Yep. Cool. So because I'm going in so dry, I have to mix paint pretty frequently. So I feel like this is almost too brown. And take some more sap green. Just gonna go over top of it like that. I'm trying to make sure that all of this is balanced without it looking too uniform, you know? And as I get into here, I want to try and push what I'm doing up against this figures as much as possible, that way I don't have awkward seams later on. Okay, I'm actually going to take, I think I'm just going to take some sap green and not really mix it, and kind of push it into some of these areas, because this is like way too brown on this side. kind of want some breaks in the bushes here in the middle, because me wanting to push it up does create a pyramid, but I don't want it to create like one solid mass. And I'm just sort of smushing it around and then making sure to pull it in downward motion, because I don't want it to compete with like a sort of pattern of back and forth here. I definitely want it to be subject to gravity. And then just gonna define some of these parts here. That's looking okay. My picture's starting to come in a little grainy, so I think I'm going to turn on my overhead light and see if that addresses it. Don't want to have poor picture quality. Let's see. Did that help anything or did it make it worse? No, I think that helped. I'm going to turn off the fan though, because that's going to get annoying real quick. That's sort of the twirling. All right. So from there, this is still pretty wet, but I don't think it's too wet for me to start thinking about what I'm going to do with these trees. All right. So it's mostly pines on this hill that I'm looking at, but that's a bit strange. I think I'm gonna have to fudge a little bit again, because if this is all pine, I was specifically told that they want dogwoods on the mountains. But in the pictures I'm looking at, it's mostly pine trees. So I'm gonna add a mixture of both. Because I don't think it's gonna matter too awful much, the foliage pattern, since the flowers are just gonna kind of drive home that there's dogwoods up there. And I can always kind of add some more foliage if it looks weird. We'll see. Alright, I'm going to go back and take the angled brush, and I'm going to use ultramarine blue. I'm going to mix it with burnt sienna. I really like burnt sienna. I sometimes wonder if I use it too much. So I am going to pay attention to my reference images a little bit more with the trees, because if I was just going to fake put these trees in, they're all going to look very uniform. I think it's important to actively be looking at trees when you put them in. That way you can kind of get some of the diversity in the branches and the tree trunks. I'm just going to start them here. So I don't like this dip here. I'm gonna smudge that back out. Hello, new person. I don't know if you're the person that just left and came back or if you're a completely new person, but hello either way. Alright. Alright, we're just gonna vary. Let's see. I'm not gonna define the trunks too much because I'm still going to paint leaves over top of them. But I am paying attention to real trees in the picture front plane. I'm just sort of painting them in really segmented. And maybe dragging a little bit if I want to try and get a little bit of perspective in there. And again, if anyone's trying to chat and I'm not responding, I'm really sorry. I don't know if the thing is supposed to make a noise or I don't know if it's like supposed to ding or whatever if I get a message, but maybe I can go through at the end and I'll try to respond to everything. Actually, I don't even know if the comments show up at the end. This is my first time doing this, so a lot of things to figure out, such as that. I figure what I'll do next time is I'll just have a laptop up that I can kind of like use to scroll through comments. I think that's an option. I haven't really watched a lot of streams either. Like I'll watch them after they're over, but I never really. I guess I'm always busy during prime streaming time. Like if there's a time that a lot of people like to do it. I must be busy during those times. I'm gonna thicken this little trunk here. And I haven't filled in all of this up here, so I'm not gonna put a whole lot through there because I'm gonna fill that in with green and little dogwood blooms. I'm kind of preemptively thinking about how I'm going to try and sneak some purple and red into those dogwood blooms. I'm hoping I will figure this out. We'll just have to see. Alright, in some of the areas where I feel like these tree trunks are too thick, I'll actually sort of like smudge them out a little bit. That way it sort of looks like maybe there's a mass of trees or it's sort of receding into shadow. Alright, so I don't really want to do a whole lot more than that because I'm still not entirely sure how I'm going to handle all of this foliage. What I will do is I'm going to just kind of take the color that I've been using on these tree trunks and just kind of darken some bits. In areas like this, I like to use the angled brush because it kind of creates, like it automatically creates a square shape, which I think brings a lot of structure. If you're not careful, shadows can almost look oily because like they're all faded. It kind of looks like a grease stain in a paper bag. If you've ordered a Philly cheesesteak or something. Not that I've had a Philly cheesesteak in a while. Okay. So I already know that I want this to be pretty dark. So I'm just going to set that up a little bit right there. That's fine. I don't know if you can actually see too well what I'm doing in this. Might have to reconsider my setup going forward. That's okay. Thank you for those of you who have stopped in and stuck around and have liked. Please, if you're enjoying what you see, go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to be doing this every Thursday, barring shows and things with the gallery and association that I work with. But barring life, I'm going to try and do this every Thursday. Sorry about that. I'm going to try and do this every Thursday and upload more frequently. Okay. I'm going to drag some of this down a little bit. Having some freaky little dragging spots just to kind of fib at some atmospheric perspective. Lines and things are going to become less visible as things get farther away from you, so having spots where it all sort of blends into each other, I think I try to hint at that. I'm actually going to go darker on this side because this is a lot darker than there first, so. Yeah, that's okay. All right. Okay. So I'm to the point now where I'm definitely going to have to start addressing all of this. I think I'm going to go in and paint very lightly some green. It's okay if I get a little tinty because we're going farther away. I kind of wonder if, like, moving it forward, I'm just noticing, like, you can't really see a whole lot on the iPad that I'm using to film with. Let's see. I guess I just worry that, like, getting a lot on my back and, you know, like, this part of my face looks awkward on film. Maybe it does. I don't know that there's a whole lot I can do to avoid it. What this needs is some yellow ochre. person? New person? Okay. I'm just gonna add some yellow ochre. I've already used a lot of burnt umber, so I kind of want to break that up a little bit. Did I just get a text? Okay, let's see. I don't think I want to use the angled brush. I think I'm going to use this kind of larger flat brush. I'm going to mix that in here. With a little bit of blue. I think I'm using Prussian blue. So it won't come out like quite as warm of a green. Let's see how this works. Well, it's a little too blue. I'm gonna add some more yellow ochre. Where did you go? There you are. Let's see, where do I want to put my pile of yellow ochre? There we go. One of the things I wonder if there's like something to be said for how and where different artists decide to place and mix on their palette. Because I always find myself just looking for like a blank spot to mix on. That's really yellow too. And I always wonder, like, do people have a system, or does it say anything about how our brains work, where and how we decide to mix and place things on the palette? All right, I'm gonna go kind of just smudge all of that in. It's a little dry. I think I want to go a little bit wetter with it. There we go. Just so it goes a little bit farther. Let's see. And we want to make sure we drag it to the ends of the painting. And there are some points where I'm sort of going up past where the ridgeline will be, and I'm just sort of anticipating adding trees later on. So I want this to be higher than this. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of points here where the trees get a little bit taller, just to add some depth. So it maintains sort of this triangular formation in the middle of the picture plane. All right. Now I'm going to add some ultramarine blue to that existing mixture. Make it a little bit darker for the other ridgeline, because there's actually like a hump in that ridgeline where you get a separation of the trees. And I want to try and capture that so that there's sort of a more natural progression into where the into where those trees recess. And then it's pretty wet. Add some more color to that. More yellow ochre. Here we go. course, try to drag that all the way out to the ends there. I'm actually going to dry my brush because it's almost too wet. I'm going to try and feather this out a little bit. Let's see. Okay, so this is almost too brown here. I want to add some more green to this side. So I'm just gonna go in with some plain sap green. I'm using a lot more sap green than permanent green because dogwoods are one of the first things to bloom in the spring, right after red buds. So you'll see red buds and dogwoods blooming, and everything else will still sort of be brown. The only reason I really pay attention to that is my dad's a pretty avid fisherman, and he always says you always want to go gigging for suckers right around the time that that dogwoods start blooming, because that's when they start to spawn. I don't know. Do you guys have any little rules like that? Let me know. I was about to say let me know in the comments below, but then I realized there's a chat bar. Okay. So it's a little less muddy. I was thinking it was starting to look a little brown. There's a lot of green though. There's a lot of green. I'm wondering if I should start to add some red in just to break up all that green. Probably need to add more red into the boat and kind of in these darker spots. Let's add some rose. So what is it? Premium rose? Permanent rose? Permanent rose. Premium rose. Permanent rose. All right, let's add some permanent rose in there. Premium rose sounds like a different kind of streaming site. All right. Let's just kind of smudge that into some of these shadows here. Let's hope we don't make it too weird. I guess it could be red buds. Yeah, I'll just do that. I'll just kind of like try to smudge in some permanent rose, and then it'll be red buds blooming. Be alright. I'm good. Nothing but just professionalism and planning on my channel. Just a lot of planning ahead. Nothing on the fly. Okay. I'm gonna add some red to the riverbank here. Just sneak it in, nothing too explicit. And this is actually, I'm gonna pull it down a little bit because it's gonna reflect all of this green and white and stuff is gonna reflect a little bit. And put some red down here too, smush that in. when I decide to really address the bottom, I'm going to flip it over because I realize you guys can't actually see the bottom. So I'm not working on it as much because I think that would probably be pretty boring for you guys. Bear with me. And for those watching in the future, if anybody watches my stream later. Alright, so I'm just going to very lightly with this flat brush just kind of smudge some of that permanent rose in. And I want to do more of it on this mountain because it's closer. Let's see what I think of that. And I'll go in and redefine some of those trees as I keep going. Okay. So I think now I'm gonna go in with this little guy. And I'm gonna paint some permanent rose. I might mix permanent rose with cadmium red. Clearly I have a wonderful handle on all of the colors in my palette. Hi, new person. All right, let's paint. Actually, I probably need to do a little bit darker. Let's see how this. Whoop! Yep, there we go. What did I say? Dropping brushes. Ugh. All right. Okay. Luckily, it was a small brush, so I don't have to do a lot of cleanup. I can just kind of rub it with my sleeve. Yeah, that's okay. Can you guys even see that? That little tiny mark I made? You guys can see that one. I can see that one. Okay, let's see. See, okay, that's a little too dark, so I'm actually gonna go with some purple. Like it's too much red. So I'm gonna tone it down with some purple. Hello, other person. Thank you for joining us. We're putting some details on the boat. I don't know, is that too much red? Like, is that not a believable amount of, or is it too much of a believable amount of red? Too much red to be believable. That's what I was trying to say. Let's just smudge that on down. Yeah, okay. That looks a little better. Oh, you might hear my dog start barking here in a little bit. The dogs in the neighborhood are going crazy. Headphones warning, maybe, if the dog starts barking. I don't think he is. I think he just lifted his head up. We're okay. All right. So I don't want to make too much of a flat line because that can actually make the image seem even more flat. And I don't want it to seem too flat of an image. So I want the lines that I make to be a little fuzzy. And there's a little bit of like a lip on the front of that boat. So I just want to highlight that. Actually bring it out a little bit. We'll probably have to go back in and redefine some points in this. I have the Piano Cat song stuck in my head. Fun fact. I don't know why. Okay. Alright, I feel like this is getting almost too warm. So I'm gonna just kind of cool it down a little bit. Let's see. I'm gonna use some downward motion just because I don't want it to, again, I don't want it to fight with all of this motion going on here. Let's see. Okay, let's add some more purple, kind of tone it down. So as I'm looking at this, I think I've started to move into a realm where this level of red is sort of getting a little hard to believe. So after I finish putting sort of these purple little details on there, I'm going to take some sap green and try to tone it down in some areas where the water is reflected on the surface of the boat. Sadly, my tiny brush is actually kind of getting to the point where I need to replace it. It's getting really hard to make a consistent line now. I think that looks pretty good. Okay. Let's see, I'm gonna take this bad boy and let's see. I'm gonna take just a really teensy tiny amount of permanent green and then mix it with a little bit of lemon yellow, just so it's nice and soft and kind of hazy. And then we're going to almost dust it in, just sort of along the bottom there. Rah. And hopefully that should tie this sort of really bright yellow that I used up here. I'm gonna have to sneak it in down here at the bottom too, because you kind of want to have, you kind of want things to be repeated in threes in pictures. It's just a little visual trick. Don't think I like how I put the green in right there, so I'm gonna scrape that out a little bit. Just gonna dust it on the bottom. Let's see. Okay. And then, Lord willing, that should all come together when I add the, just that little highlight at the very end should kind of complete that. Actually, I'm gonna make that lip that's in the middle a little bit darker. So I'm gonna take some purple and some more permanent rose. I'm gonna try and keep it warm. Keeping the arm stable is difficult in these situations. Let's see. Let's see. Now, hopefully it hasn't gotten too wet to where it won't take paint anymore, because that is something that happens. You can actually get the surface to get to the point where like paint won't stick to itself anymore if it's too wet. Let's go a little bit darker here. I might sneak some ultramarine blue into that corner, just because I want it to be a little extra dark. And if it doesn't take paint now, I can always come back and do those last details after it dries. Because again, sometimes it doesn't want to stick to itself. Just going to reinforce that shadow that's underneath here. Right, that looks pretty good to me. Oh no, actually I don't like this lip here. Sometimes I kind of wish I had a pencil that I could actually just go and draw in. Is that cheating? Like to just grab a Sharpie sometimes, just for like these really defined moments. I can hear my painting professor right now screaming. Yes, that's cheating, Olivia. Actually, no, he probably wouldn't be terribly off board on it. Yeah, it looks okay. Alright. Okay, so I need to stick the motor in the back, but I really kind of don't want to. It needs to have a trolling motor though. Alright, so I'm gonna mix the purple that I was using with ultramarine blue. It'll look black, but it won't actually be black, so it won't like sacrifice any kind of hue. Sometimes if you add too much black to a painting, it'll kind of deaden it a little bit, and we don't want that. We want the opposite of that. So I'm just gonna, it's just sort of a square. The fun part is already under the water. There shouldn't be too much of a reflection. Okay, I'm gonna have to take the flat brush for this. Because there's like the part that has the battery, and then there's the long part that sticks in the water. And there's like that little part where the water spits out. Yeah, okay. It's pretty dark actually, but that doesn't look right. Okay. Just gonna smudge it a little bit. And then we're gonna go and hint at it being a square by making the side that's facing the boat a little darker. I just want to use like the natural shape of my flat brush to sort of create the really defined angles. And then I'm just going to let it sort of fade away into the water there. I don't worry too much about any kind of a reflection. Just sort of do all that. Give it that treatment. And then I'll go in with the tiny brush whenever I do the highlights on this, and I'll kind of define that shape a little bit more later. Let's see, so I guess I should start addressing my humans. So I've been putting this off a little bit because I don't quite know how I want the sun to be hitting on them. Like the sun shouldn't be quite overhead because you're getting a bit of a reflection this way. So you'll get, what I'm thinking will look natural is you'll get a small sort of sliver of sunlight, and then the rest, so most of the silhouette will be in shadow. Let's try it. I'm going to take my little paddle brush. Is that round? I forget what this one is called. Curved brush. And I'm going to sneak some purple in there, but I think I want there to be some blue as well. I'm going to take yellow ochre. No, not yellow ochre. I'm going to take cadmium yellow for the seat. And I'm going to mix that with a little bit of white. And then a little bit of yellow ochre. And it shouldn't come out tinty because I'm going to go over it with more color. This is just to give me a base. You can probably hear my dog in the background. Okay. I like how that looks. So, and then the seat's going to be turned this way a little bit. Okay. I'm going to clean off my flat brush. This would be where Bob Ross beats the devil out of his brush. But because I want my safety deposit back, I'm not going to do that. I got this sweatshirt out of a free bin in college. Haven't looked back since. My sister stole it from me one time though, for some reason. I guess it's trendy to have paint stains on your clothing and oversized sweatshirts. I still haven't made sense of that one. I know she wore it though. Like she wore it to school. I don't quite understand how it's trendy. I guess it's just me getting older. Okay, so I'm going to use the flat brush and just sort of define the seat a little bit. I'm not going to go in too much because I still have to add shadow. Okay. And I think I'm going to take more of the flat brush and take this concoction I was using of purple and ultramarine blue. And I'm just going to go and mix that with a little bit of yellow ochre. And kind of make this sort of muted, almost like a periwinkle, I guess. And we're gonna, let's see, we're just gonna kind of lightly define where arms and things are going to be. I made the back of that seat a little high. I'm gonna bring that down a little bit as I'm looking at it. I actually made the seat a little taller than what it actually is. So I'm gonna bring the actual overall seat down a little bit. Let's see. Okay. So he shouldn't come out over the side quite like that. I want to be a little bit kinder to this dude. That's fine, I can adjust that as needed later. Okay. Okay, so it's a little dark, but that gives me something to work with. I just sort of smuts that around. So I need to go in and redefine those chairs, I think. But I think I might actually do that second to last or last, just because I think the figures need a little bit more attention. So I think I'm going to go in with this smaller round brush. This is like a medium round brush. And I'm going to take cadmium yellow. And I'm going to kind of mix that in with this sort of periwinkle color I've made. And I'm just sort of defining where the shoulders and head are. Of course, there's the brim of the hat there. Okay. I'm going to try and recreate some of this purple that I've been using here. I'm going to put it up into these figures. Might be coming in a little hot in that. Let's see. they're starting to look a little bit like potato sack people, but that is okay. I can go in with the really, really tiny brush and kind of correct some of that. I'm actually going to take some lemon yellow. And just where I think light would touch, and of course I'll have to do the same with the darks once I figure that out. Just to hint at features, you know. Probably can't see too much of that on screen, but I'm kind of just defining this hat because all of that brim should be catching light. Now it looks a little awkward right now because you wouldn't, it kind of looks like he's got a bit of a hunchback. So what I'm actually going to do, that's because he's from behind, right? So I need to just kind of define some of that shoulder. And I'm just now noticing the reason that it also looks a little weird is because the front of his head is pretty round. The front of his head should be flatter because this is the back right here, and it's also pretty round. So like, but that's okay because I gotta go in and darken that since it's under the brim of his hat. That's going to be very dark. So it's just something I can address when I put the darks in. Not a huge deal. Okay. Okay. So that's good for now. Alright, so I need to address this strip of white here. Which basically means like a brighter green, I think. So I'm going to take this brush here, and I'm going to take permanent green. I think I'm going to mix it with just a touch of sap green because I do want it to stand out as like a truer green against this sort of background, but I also want it to mix with this red. I'm just pulling that down. That's why I didn't fuss too much over these figures, is because I know I'm going to get some overlap here, but I'll have to later go in and redefine. Again, that is the good thing about oil, so you can always go back and kind of fix it later. Kind of use some of this momentum here to kind of shave off some of those parts I didn't really like about the figure. And drag that on down. I've sort of gotten into the boat, so I'm just gonna smudge that away a little bit. Just sort of pulling down. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to take a brighter green for these moments of like the top where the sun is hitting on the tree and sort of making it brighter. So I'm just going to take some lemon yellow and put that in the existing mixture. I'm kind of going to use a lot, because a lot of the saturation will kind of drain out as things are reflected in water. And then I'm just going to cover up the rest of some of these white spots. It's fine if it overlaps a little bit. I might even go with the palette knife at the end and sort of scrape it down a little bit. And then probably go back in and redefine some of the some of these moments here. Might be worth my while to actually take in the round brush and sort of fill all that in, I think, with just a little bit of white with some yellow just to create some ripples, I think. Again, edges of things in your picture plane are always going to be a bit of a push and pull, so it's going to kind of meet a little bit. Again, that is fine. I will go and kind of fix that at the very end. I'm also going to put in the fishing rods at the last little bit. To bleed a little bit more right there. Okay. Right. And just drag that out towards the end. Okay, and then what I think I'm going to do now is I feel like there's a lot of the same mark in this area. So I'm going to take my medium flat brush and I'm going to take permanent green. There I am again with permanent green, and mix it with more of the sap green. And I'm just going to do some more of the same pulling maneuver, but just a little bit more sporadically, because I don't want it to look uniform. I'm actually going to try and clean up some of this edge of the bank too, I think. And then put a lot of it sort of here, because I want things to be darker on the edges. Sort of help pull the eye in. Smudge some of this in. Alright, let's take some permanent green, mix it in with some burnt umber. Is it burnt sienna? Have I been calling it the wrong thing this whole time? Oh, burnt sienna. Sorry, I'm thinking of raw umber. Burnt sienna. Oh, it's my little pile. There we go. Okay. So I'm just going to reinforce where these sort of levels of water meet. And I want to darken all of this anyway. gonna try and address some of these edges a little bit. This canvas is really curved on the sides, so I really try to like make sure I really get the paint on those corners. Bring this up. There's always a point in a painting where I kind of start to panic a little bit without fail, because there's a point where all paintings kind of look like a mess, and then will look like a mess until the very end. And I just kind of have to keep reminding myself of that, but it's super easy to kind of fall into the hole of, oh my god, this is a mess, this looks like crap, this is terrible. And as I've kept painting, I've just had to sort of fight with myself to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. Or, well, I mean, I guess it happens. Not to let it get the better of me, I guess I should say. And I think the best way to do that is to just keep on trucking. Just be like, it's you and me painting. And some paintings will be a mess. There's always going to be one or two that give you trouble, I think. But it's always a lot more stressful when that painting is a commission, like in this case. But this isn't the biggest of messes. It's just a lot of green. I think green is kind of a hard color. I don't really know why. I guess we see it every day, and when you see something every day, you experience it a little different than it actually is. Alright, so I have addressed the point where the figures meet the edge of that bank. And now I want to go in and sort of tighten some of that up, because they still kind of look like toxic blob monsters. So I think what I'm going to do is, I'm just not going to look at my phone for a little bit. I'm just going to focus on my dudes here. I'm going to take, so I think, just looking at it right now, there's no darkest dark, it's a lot of mid-tones. So what I'm going to do, like even that yellow is a mid-tone, and I think I actually kind of want to smudge that around a little bit so it's not quite so strong. Okay. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take my angled brush, kind of wipe that off a little bit, and I'm going to take my purple and I am going to mix it with ultramarine blue and just kind of create more of that really dark, almost black color I was using before. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of fix up this trolling motor a little bit. She's a mess. That's a little bit better. Yeah, okay. I'm going to poke some of that in on the actual boat itself. It's coming a little hot. Let's smudge it a little bit. very involved. I use my fingers a lot. Okay. That's okay. Yeah. Yeah, I actually kind of like that up against. Yeah. Okay. Then I'm going to start just adding some structure to my potato sack people so that they're no longer potato sack people. Fingers crossed it actually works. Figures are very difficult when, I mean, they're difficult in general, right? But they're extra difficult when you're kind of doing this like splotchy nature painting, splotchy style nature painting, because people just don't look right splotchy style. Okay. I'm going to be uber focused here for a moment. I think I actually should be using a smaller brush. So I'm going to take my small flat brush and just keep trying to work it out. I just feel like this is still too big, so I'm going to take my fuzzy tiny brush that needs replacing. Just sort of carve out what I want. Okay. Let's go in with some more in here. That's a little bit better. Alright. I'm going to take some cadmium yellow and just sort of lightly dust it into certain places. just gonna kind of blend this together a little bit. Alright, now let's see what we can do with some more lemon yellow. Starting to look like a penguin, isn't he? And that's not what I was commissioned for. I wasn't commissioned for a penguin. Oh, jeez. I think I'm gonna need more lemon yellow. Let's see. What time is it getting to be? I've been streaming for a while now. I try to do my painting in at least 3-hour increments. Just so I make sure I'm getting a lot done. We've kind of gotten a lot done tonight. I mean, I really want to make sure there's not a lot of white left though. So like all of the bottom still needs to get done here. But we'll figure it out. I'm not super worried about it. Maybe if I go in water. Let's see. Oh, it's still pretty green though. I might just end up having to glaze this guy. It's getting almost too wet to deal with, I think. Well, I think I've done good in going this long without running into any major roadblocks. What is it now? 6 o'clock? Oh, it's 7. It's almost getting bedtime. Right, let's see. Okay. I might need to just stop fussing with the people for now and start working on the bottom down here. I need to paint the figures in right there. I guess I can go on ahead and just do that. So I'll just use the same brush I was using. And I'm going for a lighter sort of periwinkle. I think that's where I messed up. I think I went a little too dark on these dudes right there. So let's see, we'll go in a little lighter this time. Let's see. Let's use some of this purpley color. in some of this ultramarine blue. Might actually go bluer this time. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I want it to mix in there a little bit. And I think I'm actually going to use a little bit more ultramarine to make it darker. Alright, let's see. Cool. Alright. Looks pretty okay. Let's mix some cadmium yellow in there and just kind of dust it over the top. Yeah, I'm sorry I got silent there for a little bit. Just had to like focus super hard. I guess that's one more thing I'll need to consider as I kind of keep going is like there are some points where it's going to be a little bit harder for me to kind of carry on and keep talking just because sometimes I need to focus a lot of attention on this. I mean, I guess I should just suck it up and have music playing. Yeah, that looks pretty okay. Alright. So I think I'm going to look at it from a little bit more of a distance, just so I can kind of get a better feel for it. So I think the figures in the foreground at the moment are a little too yellow, actually way too yellow. I'm probably going to have to put some white in there just to tone it down a little bit, which is fine. I think I can do that without it getting super tinty. But I think everything else is kind of coming along. I think the back of the bank is a little too red. I can actually hold it up and show you guys. But every now and again you just gotta step away from it. So I think these figures are way too yellow. So I'm gonna turn that down with some white and maybe some Prussian blue. And then this little strip running along here is way too red. Oop. Is way too red. This should actually be less red than this here. So I need to address that sooner rather than later. I think I'm going to take down the back bank and hue a little bit and try to cool that up. I'm not sure if I want to cool that up with maybe just some white actually. Like, I know I worry about getting tinty, but I do think it might be necessary. You know what, actually, I can just use yellow ochre. I'll just dab some yellow ochre on there. See what it does. think that helps a lot actually. Oh, yellow ochre coming in with the clutch. Cool. Alright. So I'm just gonna kind of dab that in all over. I'm gonna need more yellow ochre. Maybe I should stick some yellow ochre on the dudes in the foreground, or in the middle. We shall see, we shall see. I feel like I'm using a lot of paint this session. Do you get a text? I think I'm actually going to push some yellow ochre back here too, into these mountains. Not really using big strokes, I'm just sort of almost like flicks. Like I'm using a lot of the side of the brush and just sort of pulling it. Now I want the yellow ochre on the second album, or the second mountain, to be higher than on the first mountain, to differentiate. Just to sort of let you know, like, this one is closer. I might actually move to a bigger brush, but I'm gonna put some yellow ochre on these dudes here. These dudes are just giving me a lot of trouble. I think that actually helps a lot. Ooh. It's a lot wetter than I thought it would be. I think I'm gonna have to go in and put some more green around the second dude here. So I'm just gonna take a round brush and just kind of dab it in where I can. Where'd my tiny brush go? There it went. Okay. Searching for brushes, always. Okay. I can repaint that chair in later. I'm not going to worry about it right now. So that takes down some of the brightness. I'm still going to commit the no-no and put some white on them. Actually, let's go blue a little bit. That helped out some. Let's do more of that purple. Let's do some purple and some Prussian blue. Let's see. Just keeping on with that one dude, continually giving me trouble. All right, let's see here. Paint that chair back in because I've completely lost the chair at this point. Got a text from my husband. Let me make sure it's not an emergency. Okay, it's not. Okay. So this little bump right here is giving me trouble. Just gonna go in and let's see. All right, so now I'm looking at it. His shoulder isn't quite right, so I need to bring his shoulder back out. Okay. Alright, I'm not gonna mess with those dudes anymore tonight. I need to focus on getting that kind of blank spot down here covered, at least for tonight. That way I don't have an awkward blank spot that I have to try and address later. Okay. And then after I fill this in, I'm gonna have to call it a night because it's been a while and I'm getting pretty tired, but I've had a wonderful time. And I would like to say thank you. I'll think again here in a little bit, but okay. So I'm gonna flip this upside down because I realized that you guys can't see the bottom. And I'm really just filling this in with white anyway, so it's not a huge deal. So I'm gonna go in with titanium white and a touch of green because most of this is going to be white anyway. Like it's just gonna be the ripples, and then I'll go in with the green and really highlight some of the movement. I'm gonna go in really loose and wet. And just sort of smudge it around, that way I have something to paint into. Alright, I don't like that. I don't like it because it is a different, it's just a completely different value than anything else. So I'm just gonna remove it. No big deal. What I might do, you know what, I'm just gonna put titanium white directly on this big brush. That way I don't have to worry about it being, is corrupted too dramatic of a word? I don't have to worry about it being influenced by other colors. I'm just gonna directly put it on there. Wet it a little bit. All right. There we go. And then just butt it up against the bank there. Perfect. Uh-oh. It's dripping a little bit. That's okay. That's manageable. Okay. So that's a little white, but it gives me something to paint into. Like I said, it doesn't give me any really awkward paint seams. Should anyway. But it is a lot thicker than anything else on the picture plane right now, so I'm going to take my palette knife and kind of scrape it down. I think I'm actually going to scrape my nails down a little bit too, because they're a little troublesome. My dog's coming to investigate. I can hear his little paws. Okay. So there's a very clear difference. I'm going to go in with a round brush after this dries and kind of fight the ripples against each other. And we'll see how that looks at the very end. And then to finish it up, I don't know if I want to fool with the dudes at the, well, I guess I should. Alright, I'm going to take the round brush and try to fix them again. And I was using yellow ochre on this guy. Okay. Okay, I think that helped a little bit. Okay. Now this guy's shoulder, this one, his shoulder is poking out. It's killing me a little bit. Yeah, okay, there we go. That's better. I think I gotta figure out some way to hint at clothing. And I think that might solve a lot of my problems, but I think I'm just gonna worry about it another time because I'm getting pretty tired at this point in the night. So I'm going to take some permanent green, and I am mixing it with my yellow ochre, or I'm sorry, burnt sienna and purple mixture that I was using before. And I am just, actually let me flip this back over. Okay. And I'm just gonna kind of push it in. Just try to cover up all that white so that I can paint into it next time when I come back to it. This is going to be pretty muddy with patches of grass, so, and puddles. And I'm going to get the puddles to reflect the sky, similar to up there, I think. We'll see. We'll see what it looks like when I get all those trees painted on, but I need to wait for it to dry before I really dig into that. All right. So this is where we're at. This field of white is a little bit more than I had meant for it to, but that's an easy fix. These dudes are still looking a little funky. I'm just gonna wait for them to dry, that way I can paint on top of it because it's just way too wet for me to really deal with right now. But not too bad for some early planning, got the water done. The boat's looking pretty okay. Sky's doing everything it needs to, and we covered up the underpainting, so that's good. And if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I'm going to do this every Thursday, putting out new videos later. Look at my gross hands. I don't want to touch my iPad to turn it off. But yeah, let me know what you thought. Thanks guys. Bye.